So today we're doing a versus video, low volume metal cymbals for your electronic kit versus rubber cymbals. We're going to do playing examples and go over the pros and cons, and we'll see who wins. Hey, what's up? Justin here and welcome to 65 Drums. I'm not going to try to tell you what to think in this video. I'm going to show you some playing examples and then go over my personal experience of the pros and cons. Let's jump into it. The first video that we're going to show is just the overall sound, and then of course the volume difference with a decibel meter. Now, like I always have to say, it's really hard to get across how loud something is in a video. For example, in my last Jobecky metal cymbal review, it's a low volume cymbal, but it has a trigger on it. And I was trying to show like the volume difference and everything. And unfortunately, some people got the misconception that the metal one was actually quieter or pretty much even with it. No, always metal cymbals are louder than rubber cymbals. Now, the one thing I've noticed is that when you put a trigger on a low volume cymbal, it sounds like you're tapping on a counter. It's actually way more pleasing to hear a low volume cymbal before you put anything on it. Because when you put all kinds of dampening on it, it doesn't sound like a cymbal anymore. So you can have two cymbals like this Jobecky one and this low volume Zildjian one. They both sound different completely. They don't sound anything like each other, because they're in different stages of being, triggered. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to test was to see what it would sound like if I just used one low volume cymbal, not converted into electronic, and use that in conjunction with a set of rubber cymbals. We're gonna try to blend the audio of a close mic'd low volume cymbal with the audio of a drum set. I was thinking if I took this Rode VideoMic Pro and got it close enough to the cymbal, I wanted to see if it would like sort of cancel out the sound of the mesh drums, because I thought to myself, it would sound kind of stupid in a recording if I could hear myself hitting the rubber cymbals and stuff in addition to the audio coming from the low volume cymbal. Okay, so when looking back at that footage, I was really surprised. I thought I would be picking up all kinds of sounds of me hitting the rubber cymbals and stuff, but it wasn't really that bad at all. Okay, so now it's time to break down the major pros and cons as I see them with rubber cymbals versus low volume cymbals. I'm not trying to convince you to go either way. Some people just makes more sense to go rubber cymbals, and other people it makes more sense to go with low volume cymbals. You decide whatever the heck you want to use. On the whole, rubber cymbals have the advantage in the fact that they're quieter. They also are a little bit less annoying to hear from another room because it's more of like a dull thud sound. I find that a little bit less annoying than the sound of like a really high-pitched tapping sound. That's just me. The fact that you can change the sound of each cymbal from song to song is a big deal to me. May not be as big of a deal to you, but I like the ability to change sound wherever I want. But technically you can do that with low volume triggered cymbals, such as the Jobecky Real Feel line. Now those are the main advantages of going with rubber cymbals. But what about the disadvantages? They just tend to be more expensive than low volume cymbals. A full set of, untriggered low volume cymbals from an off-brand or even, like a Zildjian is like $300, maybe $400. Meanwhile, one really good rubber cymbal can be $300 or $400. You can buy cheaper rubber cymbals, but the cheaper ones tend to break and they're not always as fun to play. So rubber cymbals are almost always more expensive. Not only are they more expensive, they also tend to be a little bit smaller. There are some companies changing this, such as ATV with their 18-inch ride cymbal that matches a low volume ride cymbal, pound for pound. But the problem is those tend to be like $500. On the whole, the regular cymbals that most people are going to buy, the rubber ones are just smaller in general. And of course, the biggest downside of rubber cymbals is the fact that they're rubber cymbals. They just don't feel right to a lot of people. So those are the main cons that I see. Okay, so moving on to the pros and cons of low volume cymbals, what do they have going for them? First of all, they tend to be larger, they tend to be cheaper, and they also just look nicer on an electronic drum set. When you have a full set of these things, it looks freaking awesome, and to the average audience member, they can't really tell that it's not an acoustic set of cymbals. And as you can tell from the rest of the video, the major downsides of low volume cymbals is the fact that they're louder, you can't really change the sound because they're acoustic, and also it's harder to record them and make them sound nice. So to be fair to even this out, I really should have made a pros and cons list just for triggered low volume cymbals because they're kind of in a third category of their own. So off the top of my head, what they really have going for them is the fact that they look really nice, they've got the real sizes. I didn't really like the acoustic sound of my Joe Becky cymbal that I had for a little bit. Didn't really sound that great acoustically. They tend to be more expensive than regular untriggered low volume cymbals, but not quite as expensive as rubber cymbals. So as a quick example, I'm doing the DIY approach where I bought a trigger and a low volume cymbal. This trigger was around 120 bucks-ish from Stealth Drums, and the low volume cymbal over there, that 18-inch Zildjian one, that was around $80 used plus shipping and stuff. And for an 18-inch cymbal, that's not really that much money. Because if I wanted to buy an 18-inch cymbal from ATV that's made of rubber, it would cost me $500. So it's sort of like in the middle there, more expensive than a low volume cymbal, but cheaper than an equivalent rubber one. Okay, so this is the point in the video where I'm supposed to lay down the law and give you my definitive answer on what's best. A rubber cymbal versus a low volume cymbal versus like a triggered low volume cymbal. But the answer is there isn't really a best option. Different people are gonna want different things from their electronic drums. Hope you guys have an amazing day and have a better idea of what you wanna go with. See you all in a few.